to this edition of Wishes from Angel. Yes, I am so excited. I had a wonderful week, and I hope that you all have as well. Um, there's a lot going on, and I can't begin to tell you what it is and why it is. But with all that being said, I don't know why I'm purple. My screen is purple, and hey, I'm just gonna roll with it. I like purple. I don't know why I'm purple. Why am I purple? The color purple. I'm not sure why I'm purple, but I don't know. I am excited to talk about different things today. One of the things is that, in the world is it's Women's History Month. And I think this awesome um, because, I've never been, let me just put it out there. I've never been like a rebel well, let me put it in perspective. I've never been an advocate of certain things to the point where I'm out rallying for, against, because of kind of thing. However, as I was driving through the streets of Los Angeles this week, I saw the billboard and it was like Women's History Month. And I was like, this is amazing. Now, maybe I've been sleeping under a rock, and that's not unusual. Only because I have so many things going on that a lot of times it's like, wait, what? It's March 1st and it lasts until Friday, like tomorrow. Like, oh my God, how come I didn't know this 30 days ago? But neither here nor there. Better late than never. Right, right, right. So, with all that being said, it is Women's History Month, and it's so important. How many of you know why? Can I see a raise of hands? Well, if you don't know why, it's one of the reasons is that the contributions of women just in general over the world. I mean, think about your mom, think about your grandma, think about your auntie. Well, what my point is that we done put in some work. Now, I don't know if they have a Men's History Month, but some of y'all don't deserve it. I'm just kidding. No, wait. Let me back up. What I was saying is that women have contributed to so many things through the years. We've gone through moments of unappreciation and forgotten about, but each year in March, it is Women's History Month, and it is a time to reflect. Now, we know there's so many reasons why you alone in your family, like I said, want to celebrate your women and your family because we've done so much. We've been through so many things, from cooking and cleaning and thinking that we was only supposed to be in the bedroom. You know what I'm saying? But now we have come into areas of expertise that allow us to show more than just those I guess less attractive. It's not that it's not attractive, but less skills that show how capable we are of doing things that we were once made to feel inadequate about. And it shows that this day in history is a monumental time for women because it'll take place from in this month. They dedicate the month to reflect on the, like I said, overlooked scenarios. Now let's talk about Abigail Adams. Now Abigail Adams, she you know I want to make sure that we reflect on African American women as well as you know um, Anglo-Saxon and Latino women. And Abigail Adams, now to me, she doesn't look like she looks like she could be, I'm gonna share my screen. She looks like she could be uh, uh an ethnicity like I mean Adams is definitely an American name. I mean, you know how we got all that. So with that being said, it's like she looks like she could be some type of a mix of something. I don't know. But one of the things that it talks about with Abigail Adams is that she was one of two women to have been both a wife and a mother to United States presidents. You know, the other being Barbara Bush. So I mean, it could be safe to say that she's Anglo-Saxon, but the way this picture looks, it depicts her looking. I mean, this looks like a mixture of something. She doesn't look, completely, you know, as a white person, but or woman. But it shows that she was one of the ones, and it also shows that she had a large household, and in addition to having more than one child as a president, it shows that she was basically in was a minister and a woman that I know years ago did not get credit or weren't allowed to be um, preachers or in the church. So now we see that there was historically, you know, Abigail Adams, who was a preacher, and or she basically taught. She belonged to a distinguished family in New England, and her father uh, is was active in the colonial government. So I mean, it was a historical thing with her. Um, she had friends and other type of members that family members and that were pretty much in Congress. But that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool. But I don't want to go without sharing about our culture because I feel like I always hate that things are separated. I understand that there's Black History Month, and then we talk about, all the African Americans who were this and that and the third. But we do have African American women that were firsts, African women, and they should be included in this. And I know that our world has a lot to learn, um, and it's still a process, unfortunately, where we can't come together and make things unified in a sense of we have women, period. It's Women's History Month. So, you know, on these articles that I find online, a lot of times I don't find African American women. Why? I'm not sure. So unfortunately, that's their fault, not ours. But there are so many important African American women in history, and it goes without saying, that most Black women have played, um, have played important roles in our history in the United States. It doesn't just mean that it's Black history. It's history. You know what I'm saying? A lot of things that we've gone through, we would not have not succeeded in one area of life or of growth had it not been for all women of all races. And I'm gonna get to the Latinas in a minute. I like saying Latina. Y'all ain't offended, right? Okay, Latino. I love it, but I know. Anywho, we'll get to that in one momento. Un momento, por favor. But U.S. history is amazing when it's taught correctly. And I think that we've talked about this in general as a culture about how sometimes our explanation of history leaves out a lot of things. So, in general, history is amazing. But basically, since the American Revolution, there have been many women who have been key figures um, in our struggle of civil rights. Now, this is not a history lesson. We're not getting ready to go there or not. Well, wow. Everybody knows, what's going on with the whole Black Lives Matter. A lot of people learned a lot more than they were realized was actually going on. And so, because of that, you know, a lot of times confrontation is not dealt with the same way with everyone. So it becomes confrontational to continuously bring up things about racism. And I think that there's a separate time and place, but I do hope at one point we get past all that and we can just openly have dialogue about it and not make sure or separate, like, oh no, she's in the room. I don't know how she's going to feel about it. You know, you know, we should be getting past all that. We should be, but sometimes we don't. But at any rate, there have been many African American women who are key figures in the struggle for civil rights. And that's one thing that we can't go without saying because it's true, right? But they've also made major contributions to like arts, science, um, civil societies, and it goes on and on and on. But in the colonial and revolutionary America, African American women in general, Whitley, she was one of the few black to basically um, rise up during particular times, and she was enslaved at the age of 8 by John Whitley. So basically, history goes to say that if a slave was owned by a master slave owner or what have you, then they took on their last name. And it was, unfortunate because this left a part of their heritage, back in Africa. It didn't come with them. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if that took on if we as African Americans took on those last names because maybe we weren't able to we weren't able to talk English and no one could understand what we were saying, and nor did they try to. But she wrote poems, and her first poem was published in 1767. But she went on to be an acclaimed poet. She died in 1784. So basically, it's like before she died, she didn't, is, wow, did she only live to be, because 1767 to 1784. Oh, so at that time, oh, it wasn't like she was born in 67. She was born in 1780. So she was 84 years old. But unfortunately, um, she was she before dying in 1784, she was impoverished, but she was no longer a slave. So unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? A lot of these things happened and nothing became of it, or no one was paid for it. And that's the unfortunate part, or if they were, it wasn't to her, you know. Um there's also so many, like, of course we know Harriet Tubman and how she was a self-liberated former slave person. Well, I guess I'm gonna say woman, but people want to make sure that things are said and done in a correct way. So we'll say that she, had her place in history, and we know that she basically risked her life over and over again to try and make sure that many people were guided to freedom. So she was enslaved since she was born in 1820, and she was born in Maryland, but she fled up north in 1949 to avoid being enslaved in the deep, dirty, dirty South. So it's very, very, very important that we take note of these women, not just African American, not just white, but also our Latino American were, and there are even Asian American women. I mean, there's so many that we could go on and on and on. And I know that you're aware that we only do 30-minute segments per each topic. So I won't be able to do the whole list of cultures. Um, but what I do want to do is, most commonly in our time and place of life, we I mean, there's Indian and there's just so many, and I don't want to leave anyone out, but I did want to be inclusive in as many women as possible. Um, and some people would say, okay, some women they did this or they did that, or maybe they were not notable for good things, but regardless, these are women who are part of our history, and we can't go without being that we're explaining what they did for us. Okay. And that, would be uncivilized if we didn't. But we do talked about in the Latino culture, Aveda Peron to Empress Maria, Leopoldina. And these women have always played key roles in the history of Latin America. And there are so many, 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 many more. But for the most part, we know that Eva Peron, she been in the musical history for History Channel. She on a music or portrayed on a History Channel musical, Jiminy Crickets. And but what we may not really know about Evita was that she was the wife of President Juan Perón, and she was the most powerful woman in Argentina during her short life. Her legacy is such that even now, decades later, the citizens of Buenos Aires leave flowers at her tomb because she made such a huge impression on their community at the time. Um, there are many other women. Rigoberto Menchu, and she's from Guatemala, was an activist who gained fame because she won a 1992 Nobel Peace Prize. And in her story, it was a biography. It was questionable if it was accurate, but if you viewed it, but it was emotionally powerful, many say. And she's still alive, still an activist, and attends the native rights conventions. So, the crossover between, like, I know that she is considered Latino from Guatemala, but basically it states that she was Native American, and I always think of Indian, American Indians when I think of Native. But that there were two very powerful women, and there's so many things that they've done, and of course, as I always do, I'll leave links in the description so that you could take the time to look into more of these. But it's so powerful when we talk about women and what we've done, um, you know, and how we have become um, accepted in a different role than we used to be. So it's very, very powerful. And one last culture that I want to cover is Asian American women. Dr. Chen Xiong Wu. She was an Asian American doctor, and very notable for the fact that she had created so many different things and worked a lot in her medical area in the medical field of making sure that she could leave her footprints in this field, but across so many disciplines from acting to physics and labor unions. Asian American history can be complex and but Asian Americans basically have contributed to many significant accomplishments in the United States. So that's a huge plus. But like I mentioned, Dr. Chien Wu, and others are notable, but she basically was had some major achievements in she basically joined the Manhattan Project and began to work in at the Columbia University, assisting in the creation of the atomic bomb. So she made the first confirmation of Enrico Fermi's theory that the law of parity, which states that the objects and their mirror images behave the same way. She did not in this scenario, um, in the law of Perry, this did not apply during the beta decade when the nucleus of one element changes into another element. So her life began. She was early in 1934. She graduated from Taiwan's National Central University at the top of her class, and in 1940 she graduated from Berkeley with a PhD in physics. So much to be said about all of these women in our culture that have progressed from one era to helping us in this era to progress. So yes, definitely make sure that when I post these links that you all take the time to look into these women more. Now, there's also a notable female, Dr. Sammy Lee. She placed in she was swimming. So she did like a 10-meter diving event at the Amateur Athletic Union, AAU, National Championships. And in 1943, well, that was I meant to show you somebody else, but not him. That was a man. But this lady that I'm particularly looking at in the Asian culture, a lot of times instead of them giving us more information about them, they went into more of a kind of a docile effect, kind of like what we have. But there was a Patsy Mink who graduated from the University of Chicago Law School a year later. She moved back to Hawaii, so she was Hawaiian. So we have some several different types of achievements here. Mura Wu, she witnessed the World Liberation Front student strike at San Francisco University and credited education opportunity program and affirmation drive her and got fired from her job and conservative policies. Um, in '89, she became an arbitrator and declared the firing of declared fired unreasonably. So I guess at some point she was able to get a humanitarian award in 1994, so not very long ago. And in 2003, she did a poetry collection, Yellow Women Speaks, and was examined. And she expanded and reissued by a Radical Women's publication. So her book of poetry had been expanded and reissued. But I mean, again, I apologize if I left anyone out. But for the most part, this is a very profound scenario that we continue to go through as women. We try very hard to make sure that um, we can speak out and we can be part of an evolution of women who have come from a long line of issues that may or may not be the case in our country or your country now. But for the most part, it's worth noting that we have come a long way. So that's so important as we talk about what we're looking at today. We want to be cognizant of the special things that have taken place in our culture. Also, I want to make sure that you all are paying attention on the podcast that it is no longer on my main page, which was my personal page. It is now on my professional page, one DEANA Marie MARIE, which if you're here, you know because you're here. But I'll be reposting this again a little bit later, and when I do, it'll be available for many of you to um, look back at and hopefully come to this page. But this concludes our wishes for the world. And if I could make one wish for the world, it would be again that we all unify all of the historical facts that we do have without alienating people. So making it one big historical month and one big historical fact about women or men or people in general, so that we all are considered unified in one. I mean, that may not happen in my lifetime. I hate to say it won't because I don't like to look at the negative, but hopefully we can work to make a better day and we can all unify everything as one instead of individual process or an individual like culture. But we'll be back after these messages. There are no messages, not yet anyway. But suffice to say, I will join you here in a moment with our our trending topics about our celebrities and our athletes. So I'll see you in a moment. Thank you for joining Wishes for the World.